folks. Welcome back to another session at the next big creator summit organized by Pepper Content. I have a real fun speaker with me today, right now, and we're going to have a fantastic conversation on community building and how we can leverage it to for learning. And that's where it begins, right? That's a launch pad, and we'll talk about a lot more things. We have some fantastic questions and answers lined up for you. Could you let me know that we are audible by dropping a thumbs up or a comment in the chat? Those of you who are listening in right now, just a comment or a thumbs up, anything will do. Rahul says, "Hey everyone." Rahul,
Go.
is that a response to "Am I audible?" Just checking. Oh, awesome, awesome,
We're
awesome.
getting
Great,
yeses in the
great,
chat
great.
now.
Thank you, Pawan. Thank you, Rahul. Thank you. Audible. This is like an advertisement for Amazon. We should charge them for this. All right, folks. As I said, welcome again to another session. And we have with us Kyle, who is lead community manager at Morning Brew. And I'm assuming most of you here have heard of Morning Brew and are probably subscribed to their newsletters. And they've been doing a lot more stuff lately, right? Kyle will be talking about something called Learning Brew, right, Kyle? Learning Brew is
Yes.
something we can talk about. So, for those of you who don't know what Morning Brew is, you might want to catch up. It's 2022. It's doing really well, and it is there's lots to learn from there. So check out the website. Do sign up. My name is Sudeep. I am a content marketing manager at Glance, which is India's first and only lock screen platform for live content. You can get it on the lock screen of certain mobile phones if you have Xiaomi devices or Oppo, Vivo devices, and you see content appearing on your mobile lock screen. That's us. So, without further ado, Kyle, welcome. Lovely to host you here. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Sudeep. And it's going to be chatting with you and to everyone in the audience. What's up? Hope you're doing well and excited to have this conversation.
Thanks, man. So Kyle, I hear you're in New York. What time is it there?
It is 10:08 a.m. So it's in
10:08
the morning,
a.m.
Saturday morning.
Lovely. For those of you listening in India, it's 8:38 p.m. right now. So, I hope you're hungry because there's lots of food for thought coming your way. Dinner time. All right. So a little about, let me just set the context, right?
Yeah.
Um, so maybe I'll tell our audience a little about Morning Brew, and then we can get started, dive right in. So
Perfect.
for those of you listening in right now, Morning Brew happens to be one of the world's top subscribed newsletters, educating business leaders around the world. Right? Their content and user retention strategy has been taken up for many marketing case studies, right? And around the world, right? And I I'm quite familiar with some of them because some of my friends have been enrolled in MBA courses in India, and I hear them talking a lot about Morning Brew's newsletters. Kyle here is the lead community manager at Morning Brew. A little more about the company. As one of the most sought after business newsletters, they're it's super witty, super insightful. You got to check it out. So what this has done is it's sufficiently demonstrated that the brand has the expertise to do what they aim to do and do it well, right? Today
Mhm.
we're here to talk to Kyle about Morning Brew's stunning success and how investment into community building paid off in the development of their career accelerator and education programs. You might remember I brought up something called Learning Brew a while back, so we're going to dive deeper into that. So Kyle, if you're ready, let's start.
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome, man. So, to begin with, let me ask you this: how did Morning Brew choose to pivot towards courses from your journalistic direction that up until now you've been following something more journalistic, right? And then you decided to pivot towards courses, or is pivot a wrong word? Did you just make a turn and then you're still going towards journalism? And also, could you talk to us a little about the whole journey of developing Learning Brew in that case?
Yeah, for sure. So I'll start with the first part, and that is, why we decided to go down this path. I wouldn't say it's a pivot as much of it's an experiment. I think like any successful company, you start out with a core competency, you get really good at that. We had the daily newsletter that now has 3.7 million readers. Then we started doing other newsletters. Then we started doing podcasts, and we definitely went down kind of the traditional sense of media and building out, a media company at large. Then, as you all know, COVID happens. And, I think obviously that did, untold damage to a lot of lives. In any crisis, there is opportunity as well. And so I think for Morning Brew, one of the things that happened with COVID is marketing budgets, at least initially, went to zero. And so there was a time in Morning Brew's life where we were like, are we even going to make it? Because we were an ad-based business through our newsletters. So we started thinking, and this is just good advice for any creator, how can we make money outside of our core competency? How can we make money as Morning Brew outside of the inbox? Well, we're already kind of educating people, every day. Can we go deeper? Can we take, what we're really good at, taking business news, making it fun, making it engaging, and go deeper and maybe start teaching people some of these business fundamentals? And so it seemed like a good idea. Also, our backs were kind of against the wall in some ways because of COVID. And so we experimented and we ran an experiment and wanted to see how it would go. So that was kind of the inception of learning at Morning Brew. These are cohort-based courses. People pay us now directly, so it's an entirely different business model. And we started with a course called the Morning Brew Accelerator, or MBA. That is an 8-week course. You go through it with 149 other professionals. So we cap it at 150, and we can talk about all of that. But we ran this experiment. We did the 8 weeks. People really, really loved it. And when you have a successful experiment, you double down on it. So now we're developing new courses. We're putting more cohorts through our programs. And it's been really fun.
That's amazing, man. I mean, especially when you talk about an 8-week course, because I one thing that I do feel quite strongly about is the traditional model of education is fast being outstripped by newer ways of making people learn. Right.
Mm,
The lesson and the insight that educators all over the world have finally received, I suppose, is that people don't learn the same way. I mean, of course, one can argue this is an insight that's been there since a long time now. But the truth of the matter is, traditional courses which take away a year or two of your life, or at least 6 months, they still
right.
have provenance. So Kyle, tell me something. One of the challenges that because I teach a little, right? I'm a guest lecturer for various courses in India,
Nice.
and yeah, it's fun, man. But one challenge that these courses that I teach face is completion rates, right? I start off with a cohort of maybe 50 people in one course, maybe 35 in another, 100 in one. But then by the time, and these are 2-week courses, 3-week courses, workshops, and the such. By the time we go to week 2 or week 3, or towards the end of the course, I'm down to say 15 where there were 35. I'm down
Mm.
to 20 where there were 50, and so on, right? So is course completion and the rate at which it takes place a challenge for you guys?
So it's a great question. I would honestly say no. Our course completion rates, I would say, is probably like 97%.
Hmm.
We do have some people who, have to drop out for like personal reasons. Something comes up over the 8 weeks, and that's cool. I will say, I think looking at, some other places that have lower completion rates, like take like a MOOC or like even like classes like Khan Academy. The issue is, I think people who learn or learn best, you need a group that's going to hold you accountable, and you want to do it socially, and you need kind of someone there to continue guiding that process. And I think we all are like, oh, I'm going to take this course on Khan Academy, and like I'm going to do it every day, and then I'm going to understand like world history so great. And you do one of the modules, and then life happens. And so that, I think, is the power of community. When you can get a lot of people together that are holding each other accountable, you have a lot of investment from the company, the organization that's putting the courses on. You can get really, really high completion rates. If you just take a step back, someone paid $1,500 for our course, so they have skin in the game. They want to be there. They want to learn. Um, they've signed up for it. People want to get smarter. I think if completion rates are low, you have to look at it from what am I doing wrong? What is our organization doing wrong that isn't enabling people to have the experience they want? And really putting the onus on yourself to figure out what you can do to improve the course and make sure there is high completion rates. People want to learn and people paid money, so you can make it work. And so we're seeing really high completion rates. Super, super proud of that. And I think a big part of that is feedback, and we can get into that later.
That's fantastic. Speaking of feedback, folks, there are Amazon vouchers to be won for the most interesting questions. So drop your questions in while you still have time, and Kyle will answer them to the best of his ability. Right, Kyle?
Yes, love it. Let's get those.
Awesome.
Let's get those vouchers.
Awesome, man. All right. Speaking of completion rates, completion rate is something that you monitor once you get the enrollment done, right? You got to get the people in first.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking of that, this is something I've had in my mind for a long time, and I really wanted to ask you this. When it comes to getting people enrolled in a course that could cost, up to, as you said, $1,500, so people have, they know they're going to have skin in the game, but they first have to sign up. Did you find that having built a strong community helped you get more people enrolled in the courses that you offered, or do you feel it's the other way around, where having a diverse offering of not just journalistic content, but also educational material, learning material, has helped you further build the community that you already had been working towards?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first, I'll take a step back and just talk about audience first community. And I think this is important for any creator to really think about, or any business to think about. My definition of audience is one to many. So as Morning Brew, we were traditionally an audience-based business. It was one Morning Brew writing one thing that then went to many people, millions every morning. And there isn't a lot of back and forth. And the people you're sending that newsletter to aren't communicating with each other. So it's an audience. You're on stage, you're performing essentially. A community is many to many. So not only are you creating content that goes to someone, but you're creating an environment in which your audience can interact with each other. And I think understanding if you're in the audience game or if you're in the community game is very important. So in order to create demand for our community-based courses, it helped to first have an audience. And so sometimes you want to start with building your brand up, as an audience-based business, one to many. Because we had, essentially a pool of 5 million people that loved Morning Brew, we could then market the courses to them, bring them in, and then build community around them. But understanding the differences between audience and community, I think, is really, really critical for anyone trying to get into this game.
Uh, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong. Am I right in understanding that one can leverage audience to build one's community, and having a stronger community leads to growth in one's audience? Is that
Yeah,
how it works?
100%. You start getting the flywheel. So then people that go through our courses,
Mhm.
because now the relationship is deeper in a community-based business model. Now they're like the biggest fans of Morning Brew ever. So now they're, increased chance to buy merch, increased chance to refer other people to our courses, increased chance to sign up for all of our newsletters, to refer our newsletters.
Right.
Basically, you've taken your audience and you've turned them into super fans for your brands. They're basically your sales and marketing team now. And so another great way that community works wonderfully for your business is that you start outsourcing some of this demand generation. Now you have people on LinkedIn, on Twitter, talking about your courses, talking about the experience. And then you start getting that flywheel where they attract 5 more people. Those 5 people take your course. Those attract 5 more people. And you can start seeing that hockey stick growth that everyone likes to see.
That's amazing, man. I mean, I've heard of campus ambassador programs, but this is next level stuff. So
Yeah,
uh,
it's just like that pretty much.
that's amazing, man. I got to ask you though. I mean, so we know there's Facebook, there's Twitter, there's social, right? But then, and what I'm about to ask you is not, I'm going to use the word new age, and I know it's not quite accurate,
Yep.
but bear with me. So new age platforms like Discord, Signal, Telegram are being leveraged increasingly by brands to build their community. So could you talk to me a little about whether, Morning Brews worked towards those directions, going away from leveraging conventional social media platforms and exploring newer channels of communication to build your community?
Yeah, this is a great question, Sudeep. So first, I'll say I think a big misconception for anyone trying to build a community is that, oh, community is just a Slack channel, or you just put people in a Discord chat. Look, we have a community. I really think that is the wrong line of thinking. Community is way more than just putting people in a Slack chat. And honestly, in my opinion, the best community managers, the best community builders, the tech is on the margins. The tech, whatever platform you're at, doesn't really matter. Think of like when you're hanging out with your really good friends where you feel like you're in a great place community wise. It doesn't matter if you're in the nicest hotel in the world or like your friend's basement. It doesn't matter. It's about the people, about the connections, about the environment you're able to create. So I don't think it matters where you're building a community. It might if you get everything else right. And the stuff that comes before that is a lot harder. And so for us, we are building community. We have one platform. It's called Circle. It is actually huge in the creator space. So if you're not familiar with it, I do have good things to say about it. I like Circle. But it's a good platform, but really it's about, how are you creating an environment where other people want to interact. I like to say that community managers, community builders are more like architects, and they're not the star of the show. And so the same way where an architect will design a building to make sure that people understand where they need to go, each room is going to have the appropriate feeling. And once the architect leaves, the building still stands. Once the community manager takes a step back, the community should still be thriving. And so I think there's a lot of ways that you can do that. I like to talk about the ease. So there's like expectations, which is set your expectations from the start. Have community principles so everyone knows why they're in the community. The second is example. You yourself model the behavior that you want to see in your community, highlight other people that are modeling that behavior, and maybe, move the spotlight away from people that aren't modeling the behavior you want. And then finally, it's just environment. Are you creating an environment where people are comfortable to share, vulnerable enough to share, feeling that sense of community? If you can get those 3 E's down, then think about the tech, but worry about those 3 E's first. The tech ends up being, marginal benefit.
I get that. I get that. And very interesting insights there, Kyle. I'd like to know more about Circle, by the way, and I'm going to
Yeah,
definitely going to connect with you after
for
this
sure.
to talk more about it. Um, I put up a poll, folks. Since we've been talking about audience and community, and as Kyle you pointed out, it's a distinction that not a lot of creators make. So I thought it might be interesting to find out. Ask our audience right now, as a
Hmm.
creator, if we have creators right now, what are they focusing more on? Are they focusing more on building their audience right now, or do they have some experience in community building? And I thought that might give an interesting insight into
Love that.
who we have with us today. So, as people continue to answer the poll, Kyle, I now want to ask you something that I'm personally vested in.
Yeah,
Prior to Glance, I worked for an edtech company in India, right?
nice.
And it was a really interesting company because we wanted to revolutionize the way students learned by offering them because we knew that not all learners learn the same way, right? And especially children. Some children are better at auditory learning. Some people are better at audio-visual. Some people need the tactile experience, right?
Right.
So we tried to offer, videos of different kinds. Some videos focused more on audio. Some were more experiential, where you had to manipulate the images, 3D models on your keyboard, with your keyboard or on your device. So we tried that out, and one of the things that we experienced was there was stiff competition in the space, right? In India, there's a lot of edtech players, um, but even then, while there are edtech players launching their courses and giving stiff competition to the traditional university system, how do you, as number one, do you consider yourself an edtech player? And if yes, how do you plan to stand out from other skill based courses?
Yeah, great question, Sudeep, and I'd love to hear more about your edtech too company offline. So first thing is sometimes competition is good. And I think particularly in some of these emerging industries like ed tech that is kind of having its day in the sun, I don't think that you're necessarily brand loyal to one ed tech company, or if you take one course online that you're, only going to keep taking that course with that company. So in some ways, just more exposure to the industry can benefit everyone. I've taken other courses with a Section 4. I've had friend that has taken courses with On Deck. So in general, I think it's opening people's eyes to this idea that they can take educational based experiences online, not from a traditional university. So in some ways, the competition helps. Obviously, there's downsides to it as well. In terms of standing out, I think there's a few things you can do. The first is the reason why your audience loves you is the same reason why your community is going to love you. And so for Morning Brew, why do people read our newsletters? It's incredibly smart. It's succinct to the point. It's hyper relevant. And most importantly, it's fun. Like you read the newsletter, you're laughing half the time. We take that same approach, which again, that's our secret sauce. No one can do that better than Morning Brew. We apply that to our educational products as well. So we start everything from scratch. We do case studies instead of reading 40 pages, being bored halfway through, not caring at all. We actually built our own. They're decks, they're wildly interactive, but they have that tone. You enjoy doing them. I would say like half the time you're learning and half the time you're laughing. And it's uh, that secret sauce that's really hard for our competitors to recreate because that's what Morning Brew's been doing since its inception. So find out the things that make you unique, why your audience loves you. Make sure to instill them in across your community-based products as well. I think that's huge. Then the second thing I will say in terms of competition or standing out is to think from first principles. I think oftentimes when people try to port something onto, online, obviously most of the courses, most of the experience people have with education is in person during their life. Then all of a sudden this boom happened. Everything is going online. We have all these ed tech companies. People are like, oh, great. I'll take a lecture I did in person and I'll just port it over to virtual. That can work, but I think you just have such a unique opportunity to think through what is like an actual incredible online experience look like. Let's just not take what works in person and port it over. Let's think from first principles and design something unique from scratch. And so that's what we did. We thought about everything from ignore what you taught, what you learned in education, and let's start from scratch. So that's where we have wildly interactive case studies. We have board meeting groups where people meet and have a personal board of directors. We have these really great speakers, but it's much more Q&A with the audience back and forth. We're on Circle, which is a great community platform. So I think step one, identify what's unique to you. Make sure that's in everything you do. And then step two, don't just take what works in some other area and port it over. Really think from first principles of, what is the technology going to leverage us to do or allow us to do that we haven't done before, and lean into that.
Yeah. I mean, community building solutions aren't really one size fit all, are they?
No.
It's gotta be customized and tailor made to your unique requirements as a brand, as a group, right? I suppose. Uh,
100%. And
yeah.
and let me add one more thing, Sudeep, is that like any business person knows or any entrepreneur knows, if you launch something and it's perfect, you launched too late. And you just have to know that your first iteration, it's not going to be great. And you really have to get over that mentally. I will say the most powerful thing about community is it's basically giving you a focus group for your product right in front of you. Those are your community members. When we launched our first cohort-based course, MBA, it wasn't perfect. And everyone knows that. And we weren't ashamed even to say that. I think people, one, respect the transparency, but then two, if you ask them for feedback, we would actually respond individually to everyone and say, thank you for the feedback. This is a great idea. Here's how we're going to implement it. Here's why we can't do that. And we got so many comments of people just going, holy shit, you actually read the feedback? They're like, yeah. And we use that feedback as basically a focus group to continue to iterate, continue to improve our product in real time. And by the end of the program, our product actually looked and felt different based on the feedback from the community. And it was wonderful. That is the brilliant thing, is with a community, you get that instant feedback. You get people that are really dedicated, really care about your product. You use that to improve. Now we're farther along than if we just kept it to ourselves and kept tinkering in the lab until we thought it was perfect. It's not going to be perfect no matter what. So launch sooner than you're comfortable with.
Words of wisdom that we should all remember, Kyle. Thank you for those.
Yeah.
We have the results of the poll in, and 57% voted saying audience, which means that, as creators right now, they're focusing more on their audience, growing their audience right now. And 42, that's 3 people said community. So I wish you all luck, whether you're building your audience or your community, and may Kyle's insights serve you well. Um, Kyle, I think, Pinaz asked a question. What do you think helps in community retention later in the journey after the initial phase in a competitive landscape? And I think you've answered that beautifully. I think that applies to Hajara's question as well. We talk about, how you build the process of community building. We have to end right now, unfortunately, as much as I would love to, keep talking. We are out of time. I just want you to end with by answering one question, Kyle.
Yeah.
Ria asks, when building a community, would quality of engagement be greater than numbers? And
Mm.
in your experience with Morning Brew and Learning Brew, what would you say to that?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ria. Thanks for asking that. I think it's a great way to end too. So I would say for community, almost without a doubt, quality engagement is greater than numbers. I think with an audience, because it's one to many, if one of our subscribers on our newsletter is like not, high quality, it doesn't matter. They're getting our newsletter, they're reading it, that's fine. When you think of community, many to many, you have to be conscientious of the quality of the engagement that's happening in the community, because that does affect everyone. And so I think one of the most powerful things that you can do, and this is pretty much applicable to any online based business, start really small and find those true fans. Find the 5, the 10 people that really, really, really love your stuff. Use them, build a community around them. It'll attract other people. If you just go for numbers right away, it's going to be, I think, unmanageable. And you're not really going to get the proper insights in order to scale effectively. So quality engagement really matters. We cap our MBA program at 150 people. We could get more people through it. We could make more money on that cohort. But in the long run, you're giving that core 150 people the best experience possible. And like Sudeep said, they then become super fans. They're referral machines for you. You want to make sure everyone that comes into your community has a great time, because it will pay dividends for the rest of your business. So yeah, I would be in the camp of quality engagement is better than numbers. But that's a great question, Ria.
Awesome. So we have people in the audience agreeing with you. So great. On that positive note of coming together and building a community that agrees with what Kyle is saying. So you see what I did there, Kyle? I slipped the word community in very
Smooth. That's
subtly.
smooth.
Yeah, well, it's been fun, Kyle. Thank you so much for taking time out, this Saturday. And I hope you have a great weekend. And I wish our audience the same. Have a fantastic weekend. Pavan, thank you so much for hosting us. Any last words?
No, I think, Kyle, one thing that we should probably for the next time do how cold emails and cold DMs work. That's something that we should talk about next time. Everyone who
True.
is listening to this conversation, I put up for a long time. I've been trying to speak to some folks at Morning Brew, but no, now this time I have a lead here, and I'll connect with you again very very soon.
Yeah, now you got the connect. Hey, Juan, Sudeep, all the people in the audience, thanks for having me. Hope I was valuable. If you do have any other questions, feel free to reach out. Talk to your man about good cold DM strategies. And then lastly, obviously, there's some crazy shit going on in the world. And so anyone that has family, relatives, acquaintances that are affected, hopefully everything goes well. And if you're not feeling okay, it's totally okay to not feel okay now. So thanks for having me. Everyone have a great weekend, and I appreciate being here.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
guys.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Sudeep.
everyone.
Thanks,
Have a good
everyone.
weekend. Take care.